Hey everybody. Whoa. All right, so wanted to mix it up a little and kind of change up the look of the normal videos, give you guys a fresh image, so to speak, because we are working on black and whites today. Now there's two different ways to do that in Lightroom, so we're gonna go over both ways. They're quick and easy. The one thing to remember about black and white is it requires you to take a really good compositional photo. You know, you don't have the colors to create the high contrast or the really intense interest. So it really teaches you how to use lights and darks, whites and blacks to create really good contrast and high interest. If you haven't seen him, check out Ansel Adams. He's kind of like the father of black and white photography. Definitely one of my high inspirations, but he really got how to do the high contrast. And so let's get into Lightroom really quick and let's show you these two different ways. So here's the first image we're gonna work on. And this one I took at Smith Rock in Oregon, which is absolutely a stunning place. I highly recommend going to check it out. The first way to do black and whites is simply to turn it into black and white. Now you can go up here to the basic panel and press black and white, or you can do it by pressing V on the keyboard. That toggles between black and white and color. Now, once you have it in black and white, you're really gonna play with the lights, the darks, and really create high contrast. So similar to what we do when we edit the color pictures, we're gonna lower the highlights, we're going to raise the shadows to get the detail back. Then we're going to set our white and black point by pressing Option, click the white slider, slide it until we see white, press Option again, click the black slider, slide it until we see dark. This kind of sets our high contrast points. So here's before, well, sort of. So far what we've done is we've increased our dynamic range and created our whites and blacks to the full extent that we can create contrast. The next thing we're gonna do is just pump the contrast, really increase the contrast in this image. Everything still works kind of the same way. If you scroll down to texture and clarity, you can add a lot of texture, you can take out a lot of clarity. Again, it's image specific, or you can add this in, say, an adjustment brush or a graduated filter to really specify where you want to create these high contrast areas. Then if you come down to the HSL/color, you'll notice it is completely different. It's now B&W. But it still has the same colors. This affects basically the luminance, the lightness and the darkness of those colors in the image. So we know that the sky was blue. So if we adjust the blue slider dark or light, we adjust the blues to dark or light, and you can really get customized here. So we want to lower the blues a little, create that nice dark overcast. The river, let's go ahead and fill that in. Now right here you see that top part, that's pushing it too far. We've actually done too much editing, so it's created those blemishes and those errors. So you don't want to push it past the point that it can't do. So let's go ahead and raise that up here till it's smooth. There we go. Now oranges, a lot of the stuff is orange. So if we darken the orange, notice how we create a lot more depth because we're darkening those places in the background and in the foreground here. The yellows, a lot of it's yellow, so we could really darken that. And that really makes a big difference, but I think that's too much. So we'll just darken it a shade. So you play around with those, really can figure out exactly how you want your image to look. Then let's go into color grading. Now this is a cool way to get that sepia look, that kind of oldish orangey tint. So if you go into the shadows and you drag it to orange, notice how you start getting the color in the shadows. So let's go ahead and put orange there. Then let's go into the blues. Let's go ahead and put orange there. So then let's go into the highlights and also put a little bit of orange. So now we've created like an old school image that looks super, super cool. And then what we can do is we can go down to detail and we can add some grain. That's not in detail. That's in effects. So we're gonna go into effects and add some grain. Black and white photos look really, really good with grain. So a little quick tip there for you. Add a little bit of vignette. And I think it's a little too much on the color, so let's go ahead here and lower the saturation of all of the color grading that we did, because I think that's just too much. There we go. That looks a little cool. Then you could take it into Photoshop and you could put a ripped piece of paper or something and layer it on top to give it that kind of crumpled look, and you get really creative. But that's the first way to do black and whites. The second way is to leave it in color and to adjust the saturation of your image. So in this case, we're gonna do some basic edits here. I've already done the shadows, so we're gonna raise the shadows, we're gonna lower the highlights, we're going to up the exposure a little, and then we're going to lower the highlights completely, get all that detail back, actually just a little bit. And then we're going to set our white and black point just like I did, press Option, click the slider until you see white, and then the black point, Option, click the slider and slide left. There we go, white and black point set. Then let's go to HSL and color, go to the saturation tab and just drop all the saturation to 0. Now what does this do? Well, this just takes all of the color out of the image, but then you can put it back in, which is a really cool way to do those photos where you see all of it black and white and then the red barn in the distance or something like that. You can do it this way. So let's say we wanted to bring the blue and the sky back. Well, let's just raise the blue. And there we go. Now we have the blue and the sky back. Or let's say we wanted to bring the sun back. You can actually click this little circle here, click on the sun and then raise, and it'll bring back just those colors. Now that doesn't look good at all, so we're not gonna do that. But you can affect the colors there. Now we have a very flat image here. So let's go into the basic, let's raise the contrast, increase that a little bit, and now it's looking a little bit better. And then let's go ahead and up the clarity, looking a little better. And the next thing we want to do is adjust the tone curve. This, in black and white images, the tone curve is your best friend because it specifically affects the whites and blacks. So you can really manipulate your image and create a really, really contrasty image, and it works amazing, like I said, for black and whites. So let's go ahead and create that traditional S curve, which always looks good. And I'm gonna raise the pure black point up because again, black and whites look really good faded. So we're gonna adjust this. I think that looks good. So here's the before, here's the after, adding that S curve. It's a little too much. So we're gonna go back into the basic, and I wanna keep that S curve, but we're gonna go into the basic and make a few adjustments. Raise the shadows a little bit more, lower the highlights, let's lower the exposure a little bit, and then we're gonna lower the contrast. Just kind of balancing out because we did a lot in the tone curve to really affect it. And then I'm actually gonna go back into the tone curve and up this a little, lower this just a little, small tweaks to get it right. And then let's go ahead and put a adjustment layer here, a graduated filter, darken that up. And I think we're looking good. Before, after. That's pretty cool. Pretty big difference. And then I'm gonna add a radial filter here to intensify the sun. I think that'll just kind of blow it out a little. And again, it comes down to personal preference at this point, but you can really get a high contrast point. And then I'm going to pull another radial filter, another graduated filter here, darken that up. And then let's go ahead and raise the exposure just a little bit. Okay, there we go. That looks good. I can work with that. Let's see, a little bit more. Maybe put, lighten this up a little, create a little bit of interest in the image, a little bit of depth, so your attention goes to the right and then follows it to the sun. So that could be good there. And then I would go through this and dodge and burn a lot, hit the tops of these grassy areas. Oh, let's do this, let's do a new one. Hit the top of these grassy areas with a little bit more exposure and really create a lot of depth in the image. And that would just take time and just doing it all that. So I'm not gonna go through all of that right now because that is basically the two ways to do black and white images. The thing to remember with black and white images and what I find really fun is some people say that like really bright light or super bright daylight is no good for photos. Well, here's what I say. If you have good light, good clouds, good sunset, color photo. Any other non-optimum conditions, black and white photo, because you can always manipulate it to make it work for you. So that's it for this tutorial. If you guys liked it, go ahead and give it a like. Comment if you have any questions. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. I do videos like this every Monday at 7 p.m. But hope you like the new setup. I will see you guys next week.